what I'm going to be walking through today and probably next Wednesday as well is adaptations made for a large group or class presentation. And we're going to talk about classroom work. And again, I work at Stern School and I work with teachers there. And there's a few adaptations I've made for structure and routine that have helped the teachers a lot that I'll be sharing with you. Let's begin with just teaching a group. Now, in teaching a group, I think the number one thing, the first month, should be structure and procedures. It's called grooving in the research, getting the kids grooved. So that your number one goal is to get the kids grooved in both discipline, structure, and routines. That means when they come in the room, they know exactly what to do. So example is, what I used to do when I taught first, second grade is when kids came in the room, they went right to handwriting. And handwriting doesn't require a lot of work. It just requires having sheets to copy, et cetera. And it's a very motor type thing. It's a calming type thing. Some of the kids who had poor handwriting, I had them their desk at the chalkboard, and I'd have large letters and then dot to dot, and they would do that in large letters and dot to dot, et cetera. But it gave kids knew exactly what to do when they came in, which allowed me to move effortlessly into the lesson. That's one thing. Another thing is kids can come in, do their job as soon as they enter quietly, like water the plants, open the window, do the calendar, that kind of thing, which good elementary teachers do, and then go and do their handwriting. They can also practice some of the sight words in the 150 sight words, and they can do that with a partner. So there can be a list. There's like 5 groups of lists, and they can just practice with a partner in a whisper. Now, I basically, when you work with a partner, talk about trying to stay in a 2-inch voice. That's a handy technique, a 2-inch voice. That's a voice that hits your hand at 2 inches. So I'll often say when I'm working with kids, or if they're working in partners, you need to, what I'll do is I'll anticipate. One of the great ways of correcting behavior is anticipate problems before they occur. So I'll thank us, and Tom, I'm going to thank you for using a 2-inch voice when you get started. Judy, I want to thank you for alternating with Bob when you're doing this. I notice you do that really well. Now, thank you for getting going. I appreciate, John, that when you're struggling with reading, you don't mind when Bob takes over. So I anticipate issues by complimenting them pre. I learned that from the best teacher I've ever observed. And he was a coach for my kid. And it was amazing. Guys, I love the way you're going to line up to get out of here. They'd all line up straight. Bob, I love the way you're going to open that fence. I appreciate, John, you picking up the mitts and balls. So he'd give anticipatory praise for what he wants. And that applies to everything, like syllable work, tracking when you're tracking. Bob, I love the way you did step tracking yesterday. That was great. Show how we do it today. So you're kind of anticipating issues is one of the ways you help grooving. And all the things I'm giving you now, I gave to a teacher who was really having a hard time. And these change it. One of his problems is getting kids to line up properly. And he was out there kind of giving them orders. It doesn't work. And I'll explain why that doesn't work. But he'd give orders, and so he changed that. Susie, thanks for getting in line quick. Hey, Bob, thanks for tying up the line. I appreciate that. And suddenly, over a little period of time, all the kids got in line. So I'm saying this because that works with anything. So I helped a teacher who was having trouble with kids' discipline problems, just lining up. And so I had him move from a reprimand that he would get into a pre-stroke. And he thanks to get in line right off the way. Bob, I love the way you followed that. Appreciate this. Using different words, not the same thing. And before you knew it, they were lining up with no argument. See? So that approach of anticipatory praise works well with anything requiring a procedure, which my whole program requires procedures. So getting kids to come in and get grooved, do the handwriting I mentioned, because that's something that I used and was highly effective because the kids, not a lot of cerebral, it was more practice. I'd also have corrections of sheets in a folder, and they'd make their corrections. I'd have them do handwriting and any corrections. They do their jobs, and then possibly, if they work with partners, they work with a partner on sight work. So that's grooving. Now, let's look at what grooving will look like with the plan. What I'm talking about procedures with kids in a class is that I can project this digital board onto a wall, real large, and basically have a very interactive issue with kids, and just any kind of $200, $150 projector from on the internet. I can also get large magnets through my colleague. She's done a classroom variation of mine, and I'll talk about the difference. crsuccesslearning.com. One more time, crsuccesslearning.com. She has the larger magnets that you can put on a board if you have a magnetic board that you can use, or you can simply project this. You'd want one of the others for classroom presentation. What I'm getting at, if I'm working with kids who don't know phonics, the first month is all about procedures. So I would be starting with the movements to get all these first graders on task. Some may know the sound, some don't. Some would be putting us. So my classroom procedure would start with doing the movements. Example is, for B, you do the rock the baby, B, 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 B. D, D. Now, why I'd start that way with the first, second graders, even with some who know it, is it's fun. Gets kids out of their seat, they like it, and it reinforces the sounds from some and not for others. But I'm making sure that that first week they know their consonants and the short vowels. Itch, I. And I do the movements. This would be like for first graders or second graders who've never had phonics. We're doing that together. I'm kind of walking through the first couple concepts together. I'll start with that. And then from that, I will move into the plan. That means I will then go to spelling the sounds and take some of the movements I've given and say the sound like rrr, and they could either do the movement rrr and point. They could do the movement and then point, and j and then point, and do the movements till they get the sounds done. Yeah, usually should be nailed in the first week or so. And then I can go and they can do it. So I take the movements and immediately put it to the board. We're doing that as a class. Now I move to the pointing of sounds, and that I want a choral response. So I'll be pointing to this and I want to hear everyone, and then I'll say Tom, and he'll go, Julie. Anyone I'm a little worried about, I'll just ask, so I'll point. Everyone goes, Bill, Susie, and everyone's doing it with me. Julie, give them all to me. Tom, give me all. Everybody, So I move from everybody to individual kids. I don't go to a kid who stresses. I never want a kid to feel embarrassed. I can take care of that individually, which I'll show you. So notice that the class lesson, this is again for kind of beginning readers. We begin with the movements, and then we go into the saying of sounds, which is mouth, and then we go to the point where they're saying the sounds. So it's kind of like a regular plan. And then I will model a correction. So I'm saying I'm going to make a sound, and I'll say, Steve, go to, and I'll go to here, and I'll say, well, that's an error, right? So here's how I'm going to correct it. You have g, I want, let me show you how I'm going to correct this. If I go d and you go here, I'm going to say, Steve, you have b, I want g. So I'll bring in the corrections, not the first day, but a couple, but I'm modeling the procedures. And then for reading, I model. If you pronounce that as I would cover and say, you said is that what you see? So that's why I look at the first month or 3 weeks. It's all about classroom procedures. Especially, there's classes of 20 some. So you really got to make sure kids have these down. All right, new concept is pretty straightforward and can be taught well in a class because it's like a traditional class lecture. If you're doing the hungry roll, you're pulling out the sounds and you're doing a class lesson. So that's fine. Nothing different in how I do new concept with a group or one-on-one. It's pretty much the same. Now, here's the tough part. When you move to step tracking, now this requires a lot of procedures. So, and this is a slight variation of this board. It's a kind of a kink thing that we're going to get worked out. But I might say pull out knocks, and I'll go ah. Make it knacks, to ah. And I will have the kids do the procedure with me. Make it max, everybody. And they'll go max. Everybody. Good. Ax. Everybody with me. To So I'm stressing procedures. Now notice I separate the tiles. That's an issue we have, because if you don't separate and something weird happens. So when I go mix and they go mix, ix, look at what happens. The vowel flips to the end. It's a weird deal. We're working on that. So in order to solve that, you simply separate the sounds and show kids how to do that. So then, I'll ask the kids, who wants to try the next word? Tom, go ahead, ready? And I can be his finger. I can say, we're going to make it picks. And he'll go, to. So I'll have the kids take over at parts. And I might have some kids come up and use the cursor and make it right here. So again, it's all working on procedures, especially for step tracking. Step tracking is the most important thing for change and reading. And I just need to get these procedures down. So that's a procedure. All right, now for reading, keep in mind this flip problem can be solved easily by gluing the vowel to the consonant, which is what I recommend when kids have trouble blending. When I have a kid who go b, and have trouble remembering it, I say glue that vowel to the consonant. So it's picks, picks. I want them to start seeing more of the whole word. Piz. Paz. Gaz. Guz. So we'll do this with choral as a group, choral sounds, because I'm more interested in procedures. So a review. We started that first grade or a group of kids who can't read at all, start ones or so, with the movements and what sounds we did the movements with. And we tried to get through them all in the first week. We then, when we do mouth and point, I'll go to the sounds where we done the movements. I'll go and they'll go. And then same with reading, I'll go to the ones we've done. New concepts the same. Syllable work. For spelling, we have to separate or you'll get a flip. Separating solves that problem. And for reading, we glue and that solves the problem. Guz. And that's consistent with the program because anytime a kid has trouble with blending, I say glue the vowel to the consonant. Guts. All right, now let's go to spelling. So with spelling, I'll be on the whiteboard initially modeling the spelling of the words. So if I've just done the teams, I'd be going chin, and I'd say everybody with me, say the word chin. Ready, everyone? What's the first sound? Ch. Everyone, eh, chin. All right, next word, thin. Then I'll hold my hand to my ear, which means I want to hear it from you guys. And they'll go, eh, thin. Again, anytime the kids aren't saying it, I put my hand near my ear when I tell them what that means. It means you need to speak so I can hear you. So I'll go ahead and start doing this. And then I might ask a student, do you want to come do this? Anyone want to try this? And again, a lot of kids are eager at that early grade level. I always give kids the right to pass. So if I ask them for something, they have the right to pass. So I'll then get, an example of like 6 words or so. And now we're at reading. And then after reading, I want a few questions before I go further. So for reading, we'll take the Carnival series first, which is a little easier for first grade than the Tells a Youth. Tells a Youth, if you got a kid who's really is doing pretty well, we go straight through that. And that goes from first grade or pre-primer really to 5th grade. The Carnival series goes from like pre-primer to like beginning 2nd grade. So let's say we're beginning with that book. I'll show them how to sound out words. I'm going to do this word, hot. Now, if you can say the whole word, say it. But if you don't know it, you sound it out. So watch me. Hot, I knew that word. But ox, I didn't, so I sounded it out. It sits, I didn't know that. Jim, I didn't know that, Jim. Run, I knew that word. Dad, I knew that word. Gets. So I point out, if you know the word, you say it. If you don't, you sound it out. And so I'll model that. And then later on, I'll just have the kids go ahead and read the words just to get the practice of doing that. And then we'll go into the phrases. Can't go into, and I have them say it after me if I'm using Zoom. Can't go into, and they'll go, can't go into. For the gym, and my sis, her dad too. And I'll do it again, can't go into, and they'll go, can't go into. For the gym, and my sis, her dad too, and then I'll point and they'll read. These are just procedures. And then I'm going to go in on Zoom. If I'm at Zoom, I'm going to go in the Zoom pressure release. So how that works in Zoom, I like the kids in regular pressure release, the child reads with me. The child reads, and when they make a mistake, I point it out. And when they make their second mistake, I point out, and then we read together. That's ideal. But of course, on Zoom, that doesn't work because of the delay. So I'll be teaching them, if they're at Zoom, to this form of pressure release. Well, they'll go, the hot tub sits at the gym. That's 2 struggles. So I'll say, after 2 struggles, I'll take over. And everybody, I go to the gym, to run. So I start working a little more in phrases right off the bat. Dad gets in the hot tub, 4 men. Your turn. I am 10 and can go in the hot tub too. I can go in for a bit. So I would be having a class read, but it gets a tad too hot. Jez, my turn. Is my sis, and they'll go, is my sis. And she is 6. She can't go into the hot tub. I'll also show them popcorn reading, which we'll talk about, which is also I use as context reading. And context reading is when I read and leave out a word. But in popcorn reading, it's kind of a fun thing. And kids, again, have the right, well, they don't need the right to pass because they can go popcorn and give a name. I've done this with a kid who was inattentive. And when we were reading, I'd say, we're going to do some popcorn reading. And we just use the word pop, but you can use pop or popcorn. But when you say pop, you then give a name of somebody else in the class. So somebody go, Jez is not a big fan, Pop, Bill, of the hot tub. Susie, she, Bob, notice she didn't want to read. She didn't have to. She just could give she, is a fan of the sandbox. My turn, everybody, fill in the word. So Jez and Mom get, and the whole class goes tan, in the sun. Mom and her gal pals sit in the sun and gab. Pop, Bill. So that is another type of reading. By the way, when you have kids who can read well, this is a really great technique. It's, you know, it really keeps kids attentive. When somebody go popcorn Bill, popcorn John, you know, it moves pretty quickly. But I was having a kid with attention problems and adopted this strategy. I'd seen it in the classroom years ago and adopted it. And boy, did this change his attention. It was amazing. So pressure release on Zoom has two things. It has the echo drill where you're echoing phrases, and then context word, which I now call popcorn reading, where if I'm tutoring, I'll go, the kid will go this, Jez is my pop or popcorn. And then it's my turn. Sis, and she is 6. Pop, we kept changing back and forth, but it really made us very active and helped attention. And then I'll take over and leave out some words. So the popcorn is where we do context. So then once we do that, we've done the words, done that, we want to show procedures for timed readings. Now the beauty of Carnival, it actually has the words per minute out here, but that's not really needed for beat the clock. So I'll say, people, we're going to the word gab. So what do you want to do, everyone? Read as best as you can to the word gab. All right, so are you with me? Everybody, let's try the first time. So Jez and Mom get tan in the sun, etc. That's 30 seconds. Let's see if we can beat our time, everybody. So Jez and Mom get tan in the sun. Then I drop out, say, let's see if we can beat 20. Let's see if we can beat 10. All right. What's great about this is afterwards, it's got some nonsense words that hit the concept and high frequency sight words listed at the end. If you're in these series, this is what kids could do when they come in the morning after handwriting. They could be doing this and these sight words. Now keep in mind, this is a lower first grade series. It does everything in 1-syllable books, whereas Tells a Youth gets the 2-syllable books. I think at book 6. So it's different. If you finish this, you would move into the 2-syllable book of Tells a Youth. All right, now we go to writing. In the writing, I will basically have the kids dictate a little summary to me. And I'll say, who wants to give me a sentence? And the child will give a sentence. Again, this is hard to write on, so just so you know, it's for spelling. But a child will give me the sentence, the boy went in the hot, or the kid went into the hot tub. All right, so I'll go, the kid went into the hot tub, period. And then I'll say, we're gonna do a quick COPS on this. COPS is how we proof it. So C stands for capital. Is this capitalized? No, we need to capitalize it. Any other problems? No. And then I'll go to O is organization. Do we have a who or what did something? The kid went to the hot tub? Yes, we do. Do we have punctuation? Yes. How about spelling? Now, never misspell a word when you write. If you want to show a word that you can't spell, do this. Because studies have shown if a child sees a misspelled word, they're prone to spell it that way. I used to do this all the time. I'd have a word misspelled and have them correct it. But now I just, if I have a word that I want to show I can't spell, I just draw a line. All right, so those procedures are what the first month's about. Because if you don't have to get those procedures done, you don't have a lot done. So if I've got kids who come in and know, get right on your handwriting, do your job. There's some sight words. If they're in Carnival, go to the Carnival or the last chapter in Carnival, read those words and you can read them yourself and then with a partner. And then I start the lesson and follow the grooving. You know, I'm kind of setting the stage for when I can break up into smaller groups or whatever. Okay. Questions on that before I go further, because that was a big deal.
I have a quick question. When you were talking about doing the reading, again, in terms of in a group in a classroom, so say you're reading one of the books, one of the carnival books, are you doing like a choral read in terms of everyone is reading at the same time out loud?
When I'm in the first couple weeks to a month, yes. And then I can shift. And I'm going to show that in a minute. It's kind of phase 2. But phase 1, it's all about procedures. And so let me quick show you the shift. As we move to phase 2, this is where we individualize. Again, what I love about this board is the reset, how quickly it resets for you. So in phase 2 structure, I will do the oral as a group initially, where I'll say the sounds, and as a group, they'll point. And when I'm doing that, I will be roving to see what they're pointing to. So if I go rrr, I'll say, and I'll make sure, look at your board, don't look at anyone else's board, and I'll look. And if there's an issue, I'll make a quick correction. I want rrr. So I'm doing it as a group, again, for structure purposes, and I'm roving. Notice initially I was up front on the board doing everything, but now I'm roving and checking kids as I go. And it's easy to do. It goes zzz. You can partly tell if a kid's getting it right by where they're pointing in the board. So if I'm going zzz and they're in here, I know that there's an error. So I'd go over, you have one zzz. I also explain that corrections are what we need to get better. And I'll talk about how Edison had 10,000 mistakes before he developed the light bulb. That's how we get better. So it's doesn't mean anything except you're going to get better. So my oral, my mouth will be rrr, and the group will be going rrr, and I'm rotating around the room. Then for pointing, I will point to this hard sounds, and the group will do it. But let's say that's the one they're having trouble with, if, and then I'll say partner work. And I kind of arrange the partners so that I don't have behavior problems. You know what I mean by that. I just make sure the right kids are with the right. And I'll put a high kid with a low kid to help them. But how the partner works is this. George, since I see you right now, I'm going to point and you give the sound. Then you point and I'll give the sound. Good. Now I'm going to point. And then you'd point and I'd go, mm. Then I'd point. Good. Then you point. Then I'd point and you'd go. Then I'd point, I'd go, ah. Or you'd go, ah. Then you point, I go, eh. I point and you go, ah. You point, I go, ah. So it's alternating. So I teach that procedure. Meanwhile, I'm roving and going to like my problem kids and point to the problem sounds to check them. So some kids, when I rove, I listen because I know they're pretty good. Other kids, I will go and check the problem sounds. This is where you do the individualization in a classroom. I'm looking at a classroom of 20. Does that make sense?
Would every kid have, like, you would just print a copy of this board and that every kid would have something like that?
You could have a couple things. One is you can go to the internet and every kid has access to this board. So if they have computers, they have access. And you can buy physical boards or physical magnets and boards from me. You can use this, which is free right now on the internet. And so if the kids have internet, that also opens up to use the internet books, etc. So again, this could be a physical board, or you can have the kids just put the board up. All right.
So excuse me, Steve, do the kids, I didn't know that the kids could log into that. Do the kids have to create a password? And is that a free access, or do we?
Let me defer that to Steve Hagler.
Right now, it's all free because we're all in beta mode here. We're training, so it's all free right now.
Thank you. And then, and I also make a copy, and my kids have all got it laminated. And they practice with each other at home.
Yeah, no, that's fine. What you need to do to make this work.
There in the Facebook group, there's a lot of different ways that teachers have done this in the classroom. So checking in with the teachers there is probably a good idea too. They've done it with Google Apps. They've done it on cookie sheets. They've done it with magnetic strips. It's they can get pretty creative.
So notice that the saying sounds I do as a group and I rotate. The reading is partner work. I do the few hard ones and I do partner work. Then I go to new concept, which is not a big deal. And then the spelling of syllables, I now move from everyone doing it to me giving the word, the idea of Hicks. And they're going, and I've already worked on spacing. See, if I've done my procedures properly, they'll know to space Hicks. And then I'll say, make it 6. And I'll have initially everyone chorally do it. 6. X. 6. Sax. Ax. I to A. So the class is doing this. And as I'm saying it, like before, like when I do the sounds, I'm roving and checking how they're doing. Now, that's why we need a couple weeks of getting procedures down so that we can move effortlessly into this. So we'll go into the sounds. So what's happened is I've moved from everyone doing it together to now they're doing it at their own. Then I get them back to partners and they know how to glue sounds. And I'll say alternate making words. And we'll talk about how that X is usually never at the beginning of the word, neither is KN. So we would never want to use those at the beginning of the word. But they'll alternate making simple syllable words. So sax, and they know the glue drill. I'll say, make sure you do the glue drill. And then the child will move. Child 1 will move. You still there, George?
Yes.
So what's this word, George?
Sat.
What is it?
Sat.
Yeah. Now notice by gluing it, that can help them go sat. It actually speeds it up. That's why this board, which has a problem, is actually working for us in some way. Sat. So George makes a change for me, and as long as he glues it, sit. Then I make a change for George, and he goes what?
Writ.
Then George makes a change for me, and I go riv. The kids are alternating putting in sounds and reading, and I'm moving around. Then when I go to a table, I'll start putting in different sounds to check the group out as they're all working in partners. By the way, what I'm telling you now, this second approach, in Albuquerque, they were doing approach 1, and it was kind of flat and low-keyed and kind of boring. And when we added these dimensions of the partner work, everything changed. The whole dynamics of the class changed. Now spelling, I just give them spelling words and have them follow the procedures. The first couple I might have them do aloud, pat, at, as they do write it. But then I just dictate words and rotate around the room. And I can make corrections because if the word's spelled wrong, I can say you have pat, I want pet. So to spelling is just now I'm moving into regular spelling. Now reading, this really works well. So reading, the kids alternate reading words. So the first kid will go hot, the next will go box, next will go sits, next will go gym. The kid will go hot, the next will go box, the next will go sits. If they don't know a word, they can ask the partner for help. Jim, run. Dad, if none of them know the word, they just raise their hand and I can help them. But they alternate reading the words. Then I go around and just point to the harder words to make sure they're cooking. Then they'll read the phrases a couple times each. Alternate. One will go can't go into, the other for the gym, etc. And then I alternate at the lower level by sentences. So the first kid will go, the hot tub sits at the gym. Next kid will go, I go to the gym to run. Now, we would like kids to help each other. So if somebody makes a mistake, a child could actually point to the mistake. They have to have a bit of maturity to do that, but that's what we'd like, is the tutors to help each other. So the first student will go, Dad gets in the hot tub for men. Next one, I am 10 and can go in the hot tub too. Now, we notice that we're doing the partner work for reading of sounds, reading of syllables, reading of words. Reading of sounds, reading of syllables, reading of words. This saved me when I had this attention deficit group of 10 kids who had about a 1 minute attention span, and I had them for an hour and 20 minutes. And this partner work saved me. And if you just do partner work, I call it fast friends, and I'll explain when you might do that. Then beat the clock, I have them do it differently. Each kid was doing it themselves. Can be done a couple ways where I write times on the board, and when they're done, they look up and write down their time. I'll start with what I think is like the quickest anyone will do, and then go like 20 seconds, and I'll have like 20, 21, 22, 20, and I'll just point. When kids finish, they write it. That's one way to beat the clock. Kids will cheat on that, so the cheaters I bring up to my desk. I had one kid who said he read something in 6 seconds. I said, I can't read it in 6 seconds. Prove it. So I brought him up, and he had like 30 seconds. And then I called him out, and he still did it. So I said, you're my partner from now on. Now, here's the deal. This is the beauty of fast friends, which is the reading of sounds, the reading of syllables, the reading of words, and the reading of the book. There's a fair that day, and you only have a half-hour class. Fast friends, you go to the board, they point to the alternate pointing the sounds, they alternate making words on the board, and then they alternate reading. Half hour. You know, it's a holiday, or clown comes in. All kind. If you're like Stern, there's all kinds of interruptions, and your hour and 10 minutes went to a half hour. You can just do fast friends, and that is getting you moving ahead in the book and getting you to apply what you need for reading. All right, so next week I'll review this, and I'm going to go into other ways of approaching this with groups, performance groups, and other approaches that have been used. All righty. Thanks for coming.